The gravitational sensors aboard the Vorthik Dreadnought Dominion's edge screamed warnings. As they dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Sol System, Admiral Kethmarin S.'s eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical display, his chitinous fingers drumming against the command throne's armrest. 27 Vorthik battlecruisers materialized around his flagship in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the crimson war paint of the hegemony's most elite fleet. Admiral, his tactical officer, Subcommander Velthara, reported with barely contained excitement. "We've successfully bypassed the outer sensor grid. The humans appear completely unaware of our presence." Kethmarin S.'s mandibles clicked in satisfaction. 3 standard cycles of intelligence gathering had finally paid off. The humans had established what they called a forbidden zone around their pathetic blue world, a 50 light-year sphere that no alien vessel had ever successfully penetrated and returned to tell about it. The Galactic Council had declared it off-limits after 7 different species had lost entire exploration fleets in the region. But the Vorthik hegemony hadn't conquered 4 to 7 star systems by respecting boundaries. "Bring us to combat range," Kethmarin commanded, his voice carrying the authority of a warrior who had never known defeat. "Deploy the assault pods." Today, we claimed the human homeworld for the hegemony. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, their movements synchronized like a deadly dance. Through the reinforced viewports, Earth hung before them like a vulnerable jewel blue and white swirls of atmosphere, wrapping around continents that would soon belong to the hegemony. Intelligence reports suggested a population of nearly 9 billion humans, all of whom would make excellent slave labor for the hegemony's industrial complexes. Admiral Velthara S.'s voice carried a note of uncertainty. "I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from the planet's surface. The readings don't match our intelligence data." Explain. "The power output from their cities has increased by 400% since our last reconnaissance probe, and there are massive energy concentrations at coordinates I can't identify. They appear to be underground installations." Kethmarin S.'s secondary arms twitched with anticipation. "Human desperation breeds innovation. They've likely detected our presence and are powering their primitive defenses. It matters little. Signal the fleet begin the attack." As the Vorthik ships moved into assault formation, none of them noticed the subtle changes occurring throughout Sol System. On Mars, massive blast doors began sliding open across Vales Marineris, revealing weapon batteries that dwarfed their dreadnoughts. In the asteroid belt, what appeared to be mining operations suddenly reconfigured themselves into fortress positions. And on Earth's moon, ancient craters began to glow with an ominous light as hidden installations came online. For the first time in decades, Admiral Kethmarin had made the critical errors. First, he assumed the Forbidden Zone existed because humans were hiding something shameful. Second, he believed that a species which had never left their home system could pose no real threat to the hegemony's finest fleet. The humans had indeed been hiding something, but it wasn't Shane. It was Mercy. Deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain. Fleet Admiral Roxana Vega stood before a holographic display showing the Vorthik fleet's approach, her weathered hands clasped behind her back. She watched with the calm of someone who had spent 30 years preparing for this exact moment. Around her, the command center hummed with activity as officers coordinated defensive systems that spanned the entire solar system. "Ma'am," reported Captain Torres from the communication station. "All Ghost Fleet units report ready. Luna Command confirms weapons are hot. Mars defense grid is fully operational." Vega nodded slowly. The Terran Defense Initiative had been humanity's most closely guarded secret since its inception, following first contact protocols. While the galaxy believed humans were a primitive species confined to a single world, they had actually been preparing for this day with a methodical precision that had carried their ancestors from caves to the stars. "Signal all commands," she said quietly. "Condition Crimson is now in effect. Show them why Earth is forbidden." The trap was set. The prey was coming. And after today, every star chart in the galaxy would mark Sol System not with the usual symbols of caution, but with the unmistakable red of a graveyard. The first salvo came without warning. Admiral Kethmarin S.'s tactical display erupted in chaos, as invisible weapons platforms throughout the asteroid belt opened fire simultaneously. Streams of coherent energy, not the crude plasma bolts his intelligence reports had described, but something far more advanced tore through space with impossible precision. The cruiser hegemony's pride simply ceased to exist, vaporized so completely that its destruction signature barely registered on sensors. Evasive maneuvers, Kethmarin roared, his forearms working frantically across the command controls. Return fire, all batteries. Full spread. The Vorthic fleet's response was swift and devastating. 26 remaining warships unleashed. Torrents of plasma fire and kinetic projectiles toward the asteroid belt. Their combined firepower capable of reducing a moon to molten slag. Explosions boomed across the belt as several of the hidden human weapons platforms were destroyed, their debris spinning away in brilliant cascades of superheated metal. But for every human installation they eliminated, 3 more revealed themselves. Admiral Velthara's voice cracked with disbelief. The asteroids themselves are weapons platforms. The entire belt has been militarized. Our scanners count at least 2,000 individual firing positions. From the bridge of her command ship Terra's Wrath, hidden within a hollowed-out asteroid designated Mining Station Series 7, Captain Lucio Marquez watched the Vorthic fleet struggle against the trap. Her people had spent decades preparing her. Cybernetic implants interfaced directly with the asteroid's weapon systems, allowing her to coordinate the attack with inhuman precision, target their engine clusters. She commanded through her neural link, cripple them first, kill them second. The asteroid belt erupted in coordinated violence. What the Vorthic had mistaken for primitive mining operations revealed themselves as heavily armed fortresses, each one bristling with weapons that made their own technology seem obsolete. Railguns capable of accelerating projectiles to significant fractions of light speed sent tungsten penetrators screaming through space. Directed energy weapons, their power sources hidden deep within the asteroid's cores, carved through Vorthic armor plating like lasers through tissue paper. The cruiser Dominion's Fang tried to break from formation, its captain attempting a desperate run toward Earth. Captain Marquez smiled coldly as she targeted the fleeing vessel. Her asteroid's primary weapon, a magnetic acceleration cannon, built into the asteroid's core, fired once. The projectile, a solid tungsten rod the size of a building, struck the Vorthic cruiser amidships at 12% light speed. The explosion was visible from Earth. Status report. Kethmarin demanded as his flagship shuddered under repeated impacts. 7 ships destroyed, 12 more severely damaged, Velthara reported, her voice tight with fear. Admiral, these aren't the humans from our intelligence reports. Their technology is centuries beyond what we were told to expect. Through the chaos of battle, a new threat emerged. The surface of Mars began to glow as massive weapon emplacements rose from the planet's crust. The Red Planet, humanity's first colony, had been transformed into a fortress world. Weapons batteries the size of cities tracked the Vorthic fleet with mechanical precision. Incoming transmission from Mars Defense Command, the communications officer reported. On screen, the holographic display shimmered, revealing a scarred human face with eyes like winter storms. General Marcus Kane, commander of the Mars Defense Grid, stared at Kethmarin with undisguised contempt. Attention, Vorthic fleet, Kane's voice carried the cold finality of a funeral dirge. You have violated the Forbidden Zone and committed an act of war against the Terran Federation. Under Article 7 of the Soul Defense Compact, you are classified as a hostile invasion force. Surrender immediately, or face complete annihilation. Kethmarin's mandibles clicked in fury. Human, you face the might of the Vorthic hegemony. We have conquered 4 to 7 star systems. Your pathetic defenses have destroyed 7 of your ships in the last 4 minutes. Kane interrupted. I'm going to give you one more chance to surrender, not because I expect you to take it, but because I want the galaxy to know we offered. The transmission ended. Mars opened fire. The red planet's surface erupted in light as weapon systems that had taken decades to construct revealed their terrible purpose: particle beam arrays. Each one drawing power from fusion reactors buried deep in Mars's core, reached across millions of kilometers to touch the Vorthic fleet with annihilation. The cruiser Blood Talon simply came apart as coherent streams of accelerated particles tore through its hull, stripping away armor plating and atmosphere in equal measure. Kethmarin watched in growing horror as his supposedly superior fleet was systematically dismantled by a species the galaxy had dismissed as primitive. The humans weren't just defending their world, they were conducting a surgical demonstration of technological superiority. Signal Fleet Command, he ordered, his voice hollow with defeat. Request immediate reinforcements. Full battle group deployment. But as he spoke, new contacts appeared on his tactical display. Ships were rising from Earth's surface, not the crude chemical rockets his intelligence had described, but sleek vessels that moved with impossible grace. Humanity's hidden fleet was finally revealing itself. The real battle was about to begin. The human fleet rose from Earth like avenging angels wrapped in steel and fury. Admiral Roxana Vega's flagship, the USFS Retribution, led a formation of 63 warships that defied every intelligence report the Vorthik had ever compiled about human capabilities. These weren't the primitive chemical-powered vessels their spies had documented, but sleek predators whose hulls gleamed with energy fields that seemed to bend light itself. Fleet Admiral reported her tactical officer, Commander Hayes, all ships report combat ready. The Ghost Fleet is holding position at Luna L4. Your orders? Vega studied the tactical display, watching the Vorthik fleet struggle against the asteroid belt's crossfire, while Mars pounded them with long-range particle beams. 14 enemy ships remain operational, their formation breaking apart as panic set in among their ranks. Good. Fear would make them predictable. Signal the fleet, she commanded. Begin Operation Prometheus. Show them what 40 years of technological development looks like when you're not busy conquering helpless worlds. The Retribution accelerated past Earth's gravity well with impossible smoothness, its gravity manipulation drive systems making the ship appear to simply step between points in space. Behind her, the rest of the Terran fleet followed in perfect formation, their hulls alive with weapon ports that had remained hidden until this moment. Aboard the Dominion's Edge, Admiral BlackHFY watched the human fleet's approach with growing desperation. His sensors couldn't lock onto the human ships properly. They seemed to exist in a constant state of quantum flux, their signatures shifting and dancing in ways that made targeting impossible. Return fire, he commanded. All batteries concentrate. On their flagship, the remaining Vorthik ships turned their weapons toward the approaching human fleet, unleashing everything they had. Plasma bolts and kinetic projectiles filled the space between the two forces, a deadly constellation of destruction racing toward the Retribution. The human flagship didn't even attempt to evade. The Vorthik weapons struck energy barriers that shimmered into existence around the human ship. Their destructive force absorbed and redirected harmlessly into space. The Retribution passed through the barrage like a ghost, untouched and unstoppable. Impossible, Velthara whispered. Our weapons aren't even scratching their shields. The human fleet opened fire. What followed wasn't a battle, it was a demonstration. Weapons that the Vorthik couldn't even classify tore through their ranks. With surgical precision, quantum disruptors dissolved molecular bonds, causing entire sections of Vorthik ships to simply cease to exist at the atomic level. Temporal accelerators created localized time distortions, aging targeted areas of enemy hulls into dust in seconds, and the humans' kinetic weapons, their railguns, fired projectiles that existed partially outside normal space-time, making them impossible to intercept or deflect. The cruiser terrors might try to ram the human destroyer Defiant, its captain choosing death over dishonor. The human ship simply phased out of normal space, allowing the Vorthik vessel to pass harmlessly through its position before rematerializing and putting 3 quantum torpedoes into the cruiser's reactor core. Admiral, his communications officer, called out, terror evident in his voice. We're receiving a priority transmission from Fleet Command. They're ordering us to hold position at all costs. Reinforcements are en route. BlackHFY's mandibles clicked in bitter amusement. How many ships? The entire 7th Fleet, sir. 300 vessels, including the Emperor's own dreadnought. Through the chaos of battle, Admiral Vega monitored the enemy communications her ships were intercepting. The Vorthik were calling for reinforcements exactly as her strategists had predicted. Earth's Forbidden Zone was about to become the galaxy's largest graveyard, and the Terran Federation would finally reveal why humanity had been content to remain hidden for so long. Commander Hayes, she said calmly, signal Luna. Command, activate the Ghost Fleet. It's time to show the galaxy what we've really been building out here. On the far side of Earth's moon, hidden in perpetual shadow, massive hangar doors began to open. What emerged defied every known law of physics and engineering. Ships that existed partially outside normal space-time, their hulls constructed from materials that shouldn't have been possible. The Ghost Fleet, humanity's ultimate secret, built with technology reverse-engineered from the ruins of civilizations that had predated the current galactic community by millions of years. 37 ships that registered as quantum shadows on sensors, crewed by humans whose consciousness had been uploaded into quantum matrices that allowed them to think and react at the speed of light. They were as much beyond the regular Terran fleet as the Terran fleet was beyond the Vorthic. Captain Elena Vasquez, her consciousness distributed across the quantum battleship Voidwalker, felt her ship phase into normal space with an almost sexual pleasure. Death had freed her from the limitations of biological existence, and now she commanded a vessel that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. Ghost Fleet, this is Phantom Lead. Her voice echoed across quantum channels that the Vorthic couldn't even detect. Begin the harvest. Leave none alive to carry word back to their empire. The remaining Vorthic ships died in silence, their hulls opened to space by weapons that attacked the fundamental forces holding matter together. Admiral Kethmer watched his fleet disappear around him, his own flagship the last to fall as quantum disruptors systematically dismantled it. From the inside out, as his ship's atmosphere vented into space and his crew died around him, Kethmerin finally understood the truth. The Forbidden Zone hadn't been established to protect humanity from the galaxy. It had been established to protect the galaxy from humanity. His last transmission, broadcast on all frequencies as his life support failed, carried a single message to the approaching Vorthic reinforcements. Do not come here. Do not ever come here. They are not what we thought. They are something else entirely. But it was too late. The 7th Fleet was already dropping out of hyperspace, and Admiral Vega's trap was about to claim its largest prize yet. The Vorthic 7th Fleet materialized at the edge of Sol System, like a plague of metal locusts, 300 warships, strong and led by the massive dreadnought Emperor's Wrath, at 5 kilometers long and bristling with enough firepower to sterilize entire worlds. It was the pride of the hegemony's war machine, and the personal flagship of Grand Admiral Lexinaler, conqueror of the Rigel colonies and butcher of Kepler for Fortube. By the void's teeth, breathed Lexinaler as his sensors registered the debris field where Admiral Kethmerin's fleet had been annihilated. How many ships did the humans deploy? Sensor analysis indicates no more than 100 vessels. Grand Admiral reported his chief tactical officer, but their technology, the officer's voice trailed off as he struggled to process the readings. Sir, I'm detecting weapon signatures that don't correspond to any known energy types. And their ships, they're not entirely in normal space. Lexinaler 6 arms gestured dismissively. Impossible. Our intelligence indicates they're a single-system species barely capable of interplanetary travel. Deploy the fleet in assault formation. We'll overwhelm them with superior numbers. But even as he spoke, the Grand Admiral felt a chill of premonition. The debris field told a story of technological superiority that his pride refused to acknowledge. Ships that had served the hegemony for centuries, reduced to scattered atoms by weapons that shouldn't exist. From her position aboard the Retribution, Admiral Vega watched the massive Vorthic fleet deploy with grim satisfaction. This was exactly what the Terran War Council had been hoping for. The enemy's arrogance would be their downfall. She opened a quantum channel to her fellow commanders, her voice carrying across dimensions the Vorthic couldn't perceive. All units, this is Fleet Command. The enemy has committed their reserves. Initiate Protocol 7. It's time to end this charade permanently throughout Sol System. Installations that had remained hidden since humanity's first contact with alien life began to activate. On the surface of Europa, beneath kilometers of ice, the Titan Yards came online, massive construction facilities that had been building humanity's true fleet for decades. On Titan itself, the methane seas parted as submarine weapons platforms rose to the surface, their hulls gleaming with quantum armor. But the most terrifying sight was Earth itself. The planet's surface began to change as continent-sized weapon platforms emerged from hidden underground installations. What the galaxy had mistaken for Earth's natural geography revealed itself as the most heavily fortified world in known space. The Himalayas split open to reveal particle beam arrays that drew power directly from the planet's core. The Pacific Ocean drained as massive underwater cities rose to the surface, each one a fortress factory that had been producing weapons of war for generations. My God, whispered Captain Torres from the communications station. Command, I'm receiving priority signals from installations I didn't know existed. Sir, how long have we been preparing for this? Admiral Vega's smile was winter cold. Since the day we learned we weren't alone in the universe, Captain, every first contact protocol, every peaceful negotiation, every trade agreement, all of it was buying us time to prepare for this moment. The Vorthic 7th Fleet opened fire first, their weapons systems unleashing enough destructive force to crack a moon. Plasma torrents and kinetic projectiles filled the space between the two forces, a river of annihilation racing toward the human defenders. The attack struck Earth's orbital defense grid and simply stopped. Energy barriers that span continents absorbed the incoming fire. Their generators buried so deep in the planet's crust that they drew power from tectonic forces themselves. The few projectiles that penetrated the barriers were intercepted by point defense systems that fired thousands of times per second, creating walls of coherent energy that vaporized anything approaching the planet. Impossible. Grand Admiral Dexinaler snarled. Focus all fire on their orbital installations. Concentrate the entire fleet's firepower on a single point. The Vorthic fleet adjusted its formation, every weapon system targeting the same section of Earth's defense grid. For a moment, the barriers flickered under the concentrated assault. Alarms began sounding throughout the human command centers, as power fluctuations threatened to cascade through the entire system. Then Earth fought back. The planet itself became a weapon. Magnetic field generators buried at the poles created focused streams of charged particles that reached across millions of kilometers to strike the Vorthic fleet. The Emperor's wrath shuddered as its hull was subjected to forces equivalent to solar radiation, its armor plating beginning to buckle under the assault. Shields failing, the tactical officer reported. Hull breach on decks 40 through 60. The humans are using our own star against us. But that was only the beginning. From hidden positions throughout the solar system, humanity's true fleet began to reveal itself. Not the 100 ships the Vorthic had detected, but thousands. Vessels that had been constructed in hidden shipyards. Their crews trained in facilities buried beneath Earth's surface. Their very existence classified at the highest levels of human government. Admiral Elena Vasquez, her consciousness still distributed across the quantum battleship Voidwalker, felt a moment of pure joy as she watched the enemy fleet realize the scope of their miscalculation. Her ship existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously, allowing her to attack from angles that traditional physics didn't permit. Ghost Fleet, commence interdiction protocol, she commanded. Cut off their retreat. No ship leaves this system. The quantum battleships moved with impossible grace, their hulls shifting between dimensions as they surrounded the Vorthic fleet. Space itself seemed to twist around them, creating gravimetric anomalies that prevented faster-than-light travel. The Vorthic were trapped, surrounded by enemies they couldn't fully perceive, fighting a battle they couldn't possibly win. Grand Admiral Dexinaler watched his fleet being systematically dismantled by weapons that violated every law of physics. He understood. Ships that had conquered star systems were being reduced to component atoms by human technology. That seemed almost magical in its impossibility. Sir, his communications officer called out, voice cracking with terror. I'm receiving surrender offers from 47 of our vessels. They're requesting permission to no surrender. Dexinaler roared. The hegemony does not yield. All ships, ramming speed. If we're going to die, we'll take these human monsters with us. The Vorthic fleet's final charge began in desperation and ended in slaughter. Human ships that could phase in and out of normal space simply allowed the enemy vessels to pass through them before rematerializing and destroying them from within. Others used temporal manipulation to age the attacking ships into dust before they could close the distance. As his own flagship began to come apart around him, Grand Admiral Dexinaler finally understood the terrible truth. Humanity hadn't been hiding in their system because they were afraid of the galaxy. They had been hiding because they were preparing to own it. The space around Sol had become a graveyard of twisted metal and expanding plasma clouds. But the Vorthic hegemony's response was swift and merciless. Even as Grand Admiral Dexinaler's flagship Emperor's wrath broke apart under quantum torpedo fire, hyperspace signatures began blooming throughout the outer system. The hegemony had committed everything 5 entire fleet groups, over 1,500 warships, including the legendary planet killers of the 1st Expeditionary Force. Admiral Vega stood in the command center deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain, her weathered face illuminated by tactical displays showing the massive enemy reinforcements. Around her, the greatest military minds humanity had ever produced worked with desperate efficiency to coordinate a defense that would determine the fate of their species. Reported General Kane from Mars Command, his scarred face grim. With determination, we're detecting planet killers' signatures in the enemy formation. At least 12 of them, if even one breaks through our perimeter. I know, Marcus. Vega's voice carried the weight of command decisions that had shaped for decades of preparation. Signal all defense stations. full deployment everything. We've built every secret we've kept. Today, we show the galaxy why Earth is truly forbidden. The planet killers emerged from hyperspace like harbingers of extinction, each one a mobile weapons platform capable of cracking worlds. The Obliteration's Edge, flagship of Fleet Marshal BlackHFY, led the formation with weapons systems that had reduced 13 inhabited worlds to radioactive ash. Behind it came vessels whose names were whispered in fear across the galaxy. World Breaker, Star Quencher, Voidbringer, target the third planet. Fleet Marshal BlackHFY commanded, his massive form filling the command throne designed for the hegemony's largest warriors. Sterilize it completely, make an example that will echo through history. But as the planet killers moved into firing position, Earth's true defenses finally revealed themselves. The planet's crust split open along tectonic lines as weapons installations. The size of mountain ranges rose from hidden positions. The Yellowstone Array, built into the supervolcano itself, emerged as a directed energy weapon that drew power from the planet's molten core. The Mariana Cannon, constructed in the deepest ocean trench, surfaced as a railgun capable of accelerating projectiles to 30% of light speed. By the void, whispered BlackHFY's tactical officer, the entire planet is a fortress. How is this possible? The answer came in the form of coordinated fire from weapons systems that defied every known law of physics. Earth struck back with the fury of a world that had spent 40 years preparing for this exact moment. Particle streams hot enough to ignite atmospheres reached across millions of kilometers. To touch the planet killers, their exotic matter containment systems buckling under the assault. The Star Quencher was the first to die, its hull cracking, open like an egg as quantum disruptors attacked the fundamental forces holding its matter together. The explosion was visible from the outer planets, a brief star that outshone Sol itself before fading into expanding debris, but the planet killers' return fire was devastating. The World Breaker targeted Luna Base, its primary weapon systems charging with enough energy to vaporize continents. Captain Sarah Chen, commanding the moon's defense grid from Deep Station 7, watched the energy readings climb toward critical and made the hardest decision of her life. All personnel, immediate evacuation to emergency bunkers, she commanded, her voice steady despite the doom approaching her position. Luna Base will not fall while I draw breath. The planet killer's main gun fired, sending a stream of concentrated antimatter toward Earth's moon. Captain Chen activated Luna Base's ultimate defensive-controlled collapse that turned the entire facility into a kinetic weapon. As the antimatter beam struck, Luna Base's mass drivers fired the base itself at the World Breaker. 20 million tons of refined titanium and human determination racing through space at incredible velocity. The collision destroyed both installations. Captain Chen and her entire crew died in the explosion, but their sacrifice bought Earth precious time. Throughout the solar system, similar acts of heroism played out as humanity's defenders faced impossible odds. On Mars, General Kane watched his atmospheric processors being systematically destroyed by Vortic bombardment. But his planet-based weapons continued firing even as the red soil around them turned to glass. And our enemy fire, sir, we've lost 60% of our primary rays, reported Colonel Williams, her uniform stained with blood from falling debris. The enemy is concentrating fire on our power generation facilities. Kane nodded grimly, his artificial arm a souvenir from the Titan incident 20 years earlier, working frantically at his command console. Signal Earth Command. Mars defense grid is holding position. We'll buy them whatever time we can. The asteroid belt had become a three-dimensional battlefield, where Captain Lucia Marquez fought a running battle against overwhelming odds. Her flagship, the converted asteroid Ceres station, had taken critical damage from planet killer fire, but her weapons systems remain operational. Around her, the hidden fortress asteroids revealed themselves one by one, each emerging from camouflage to add their firepower to humanity's desperate defense. Ma'am, her tactical officer reported, we've lost contact with Vesta Station and Palace Command. Enemy forces are closing on our position from 3 vectors. Marquez's cybernetic implants interface directly with her ship's weapon systems, allowing her to coordinate defensive fire within human precision. Signal all remaining stations. Converging fire pattern Delta 7. If we're going down, we're taking as many of these bastards with us as possible. The space around Ceres erupted in coordinated violence as the remaining asteroid fortresses concentrated their fire. on the approaching planet killer Voidbringer, weapons that had been designed to crack moons focused their fury on a single target. Their combined firepower overwhelming even the massive warship's defenses. The planet killer's hull began to buckle as quantum torpedoes tore through its armor plating, secondary explosions rippling along its length. But the victory came at a terrible cost. The Voidbringer's death throes sent massive chunks of debris spinning through the asteroid belt, crushing 3 fortress asteroids and killing thousands of defenders. Captain Marquez felt her own station shudder as a piece of planet killer hull, the size of a city block, smashed through her command section, hull breach on all levels. Her engineering officer reported, his voice distorted by the emergency atmosphere. Suits they now wore. We've got maybe 10 minutes before total structural failure. Marquez smiled coldly, her fingers dancing across her command interface one last time. Then we make those 10 minutes count. All weapons, continuous fire. Show these alien bastards what human stubbornness looks like. As her station began to come apart around her, Captain Marquez kept firing until the very end. Her weapons systems silenced only when the command deck itself was open to space. Her sacrifice, and those of thousands like her, by humanity. The time it needed for its most desperate gambit, deep in the Earth's core, in facilities that existed outside normal space-time. Humanity's greatest secret was finally activated. The planet itself became a weapon, its gravitational field weaponized by technology that had taken for decades to perfect. Earth reached out with invisible hands and began to crush the enemy fleet, warping space-time itself to turn the vortex on momentum against them. The tide of battle was about to turn, but the cost in human lives had been staggering. Nearly half of humanity's defenders were dead or dying, their sacrifice written in the debris fields that surrounded their homeworld. The survivors prepared for one final, desperate gambit. The Earth burned, not from enemy fire, but from the massive energy expenditure required to maintain its gravitational weapons. The planet's surface cracked along stress lines as deep core generators drew power directly from the molten interior, turning the entire world into a weapons platform of unprecedented scale. In orbit, the debris of Luna Base formed a silver ring around the planet, a memorial to the 20,000 souls who had died defending humanity's first off-world colony. Admiral Vega stood in the ruins of Cheyenne Mountain's command center. Half the facility collapsed from the seismic stress of the gravitational weapons around her. The surviving command staff worked at makeshift stations, their faces illuminated by emergency lighting and the hellish glow from damaged displays. Blood stained the floor where falling debris had claimed lives, but the survivors pressed on with grim determination. Status report, she demanded, her voice hoarse from breathing the dust-filled air. Commander Hayes, his left arm in a makeshift sling, consulted a cracked tablet. We've lost 60% of our orbital assets, ma'am. Mars' defense grid is down to 30% capacity. The asteroid belt fortifications are effectively destroyed. He paused, swallowing hard. Casualty reports are still coming in, but preliminary estimates suggest we've lost over 40,000 personnel. The numbers hit Vega like physical blows. 40,000 of humanity's finest, dead in the span of hours. But their sacrifice had not been in vain. Of the Vorthic's massive fleet, less than 300 ships remain operational, and many of those were severely damaged. What about the Ghost Fleet? She asked. Admiral Vasquez reports her quantum battleships are still operational, but they're running low on exotic matter for their dimensional drives. She estimates maybe 6 more hours of combat effectiveness before they're forced to return to normal space permanently through the damaged viewports. Earth's surface continued to crack and heave as the gravitational weapons maintained their assault on the surviving Vorthic forces, but the strain was becoming unbearable. The planet itself was beginning to show signs of structural failure. If they couldn't end this battle soon, the defense of Earth would succeed only in destroying the world they were trying to protect. In the vacuum above Earth's northern pole, Fleet Marshal Drakthira surveyed the wreckage of his once mighty armada. From the bridge of his crippled flagship, the Obliteration's Edge had lost half its weapon systems and most of its defensive screens, but it remained operational through the sheer bloody-mindedness of its crew. Around him, the surviving ships of 5 fleet groups limped through space, their formation shattered, but their determination unbroken. Status of the planet killers? He demanded. 7 destroyed, sir, his tactical officer reported, her voice tight with barely controlled fear. The remaining 5 are operational, but heavily damaged, sir. I'm detecting massive stress fractures in the human planet's crust. Their gravitational weapons are tearing their own world apart. BlackHFY. Mandibles clicked in savage satisfaction. Then we need only survive long enough for their planet to destroy itself. Signal all ships defensive formation. Let the humans commit suicide while we watch. But even as he spoke, new contacts appeared on his sensors. Ships rising from the deepest ocean trenches of Earth, their hulls gleaming with technology that made even the Ghost Fleet seem primitive. These weren't vessels built by human hands, they were constructions of living metal that seemed to exist partially outside the normal flow of time. Admiral Vasquez, her consciousness distributed across the quantum battleship Voidwalker, felt a moment of awe as she observed the Leviathan fleet's emergence. These were humanity's deepest secret, built with technology salvaged from the ruins of civilizations that had fallen before the first human had learned to make fire. Ships whose crews had volunteered to have their consciousness merged with alien systems, becoming something more than human but less than divine. Ghost Fleet, this is Leviathan Actual. A voice that sounded like harmony itself spoke across quantum channels. We are assuming primary combat authority. Recommend you withdraw to safe distance. Captain Elena Vasquez, even in her quantum-enhanced state, felt a chill at the cold perfection in that voice. The Leviathan crews had sacrificed their humanity itself in the ultimate act of devotion to Earth's defense. Acknowledged, Leviathan Actual. She replied, her quantum consciousness already beginning the withdrawal sequence. Ghost Fleet is pulling back to defensive perimeter. The Leviathan ships moved with impossible grace, their living metal hulls shifting and flowing like liquid mercury given purpose. 27 vessels emerged from Earth's deepest ocean trenches, each one a fusion of human determination and alien technology that predated the current galactic civilization by millions of years. They were humanity's final gambit, the last card in a game where the stakes were species survival. Fleet Marshal BlackHFY watched the new human ships approach with growing unease. His sensors couldn't properly lock onto them. They seemed to exist in a constant state of flux, their energy signatures shifting through spectrums that his instruments couldn't classify. What are those things? He whispered. His tactical officer's voice cracked as she tried to process the readings. Sir, I don't know. They're not showing up as solid matter on our scanners. It's like they're made of crystallized space-time itself. The lead Leviathan ship, the Eternal Tide, moved to within weapons range of the Vorthic formation. Its hull rippled like water, revealing weapon ports that seemed to open directly into the void between dimensions. When it spoke, its voice carried harmonics that bypassed the communication system entirely, speaking directly to the minds of everyone who heard it. Vorthic Fleet, the voice resonated with the weight of eons. You have violated the sacred boundaries of soul. You have brought death to the children of Earth. For this transgression, you will be unmade from existence itself. No trace of your passage will remain. Your atoms will be scattered across dimensions where entropy itself has no meaning. BlackHFY felt his 6 hearts skip beats as primitive terror flooded his system. This wasn't the voice of any species. He knew it carried overtones of intelligence so vast and ancient that his mind recoiled from comprehending it fully. All ships, he commanded, his voice betraying none of the fear that gripped him. Concentrate all firepower on those things. Destroy them before they can. The Leviathan fleet attacked. What followed wasn't a battle in any conventional sense. The alien-human hybrids wielded weapons that attacked reality itself, unmaking their targets at the quantum level. The planet killer Doom's herald simply ceased to exist. Its mass converted directly into energy that was then channeled into dimensional rifts that fed power back to Earth's failing gravitational weapons. Space itself became a weapon as the Leviathans manipulated the fundamental forces of the universe. Gravity wells appeared and disappeared at will, crushing Vorthic ships into singularities before dispersing their mass across multiple dimensions. Time flowed backward around targeted vessels, aging them in reverse until they had never been built. The obliteration's edge found itself caught in a temporal loop, experiencing its own destruction over and over again while its crew remained conscious. Throughout each iteration, Fleet Marshal BlackHFY screamed in languages that had been dead for millennia as his mind was touched by intelligence that had witnessed the birth and death of galaxies. But even the Leviathans were not omnipotent. The sustained use of their reality-warping weapons was tearing holes in space-time itself, creating dangerous instabilities that threatened to cascade beyond the Sol system. Dark energy began bleeding through the tiers, its exotic properties poisoning the quantum foam that underlied all existence. Admiral Vega felt the mountain shudder around her. As dimensional rifts opened and closed throughout the facility, emergency klaxons wailed as breach alarms indicated that reality itself was becoming unstable in the command center. "Mum," Commander Hayes shouted over the chaos. "The Leviathans are destabilizing local space-time. If they continue at this rate, they'll tear a hole in reality that could consume the entire solar system." Vega opened a priority channel to the Leviathan fleet, her voice cutting through the dimensional static with desperate urgency. "Leviathan Actual. This is Fleet Command. Cease reality manipulation immediately. You're threatening the stability of Sol system itself." The response came as harmonics that seemed to emerge from the fabric of space itself. "Fleet Command, this is the price of absolute victory. The enemy must be eliminated completely, or they will return with forces that will overwhelm even our capabilities. We calculate acceptable losses at 97% of current human population." "Negative," Vega shouted. "I will not sacrifice humanity to save humanity. Find another way." For a moment that stretched across dimensions, the Leviathan fleet paused in its assault. The surviving Vortex ships hung in space like broken toys, their crews either dead or driven insane by exposure to forces beyond their comprehension. Fleet Marshal Dracthyris' flagship drifted powerless, its captain trapped in a temporal loop that showed him endless variations of his own failure. At then the Eternal Tide spoke again, its voice carrying notes of something that might have been sadness. "Fleet Command, there's another option, but it will require the sacrifice of the Leviathan fleet itself. We can collapse the dimensional rifts we have created, using our own essence to seal the tears in reality. This will eliminate the remaining enemy forces and prevent the cascade failure that threatens Sol system." Admiral Vega closed her eyes, feeling the weight of command decisions that would echo through history. Around her, the command staff waited in silence as their leader made a choice that would define humanity's future. "Do it," she whispered. "God forgive us all, but do it." The Leviathan fleet began its final transformation. The living metal of their hulls started to glow with inner fire as the hybrid consciousness within prepared for ultimate sacrifice. They had been human once, volunteers who had given up their flesh and blood existence to become guardians of their species. Now they prepared to give up existence itself. The dimensional rifts throughout Sol system began to collapse, their exotic energies contained and neutralized by the Leviathan sacrifice. The surviving Vortex ships were caught in the implosion, their atoms scattered across dimensions where the concept of matter itself had no meaning. As the last Leviathan ship faded from existence, its final transmission echoed across every communication channel in the solar system. "Remember us not as monsters, but as humans who chose to become something else so that humanity could remain itself. The stars await you, children of Earth. Make them proud." Silence fell across Sol system. The battle was over. Earth still turned on its axis, scarred but alive, and in the void where the mighty fleets had clashed, only debris remained to mark the passage of the greatest battle in human history. 3 months after the Battle of Sol, Admiral Roxana Vega stood in the newly constructed Memorial Hall, built from the salvaged hull plates of both human and Vortex vessels. The names of the 47,000 human defenders who had died protecting Earth were etched into walls of burnished metal that caught and reflected the light from Earth's healing sun. At the center of the hall, a quantum flame burned eternally, maintained by technology gifted by the Leviathan fleet. Before their final sacrifice, "Ma'am," Commander Hayes approached, his left arm now replaced by a cybernetic prosthetic that gleamed with the same living metal technology the Leviathans had used. "The Galactic Council's delegation has arrived. They're requesting an immediate audience." Vega nodded, her weathered face showing every day of the past months. The battle had aged her decades in hours, but her eyes still held the steel that had seen humanity through its darkest trial. "Very well. Time to show the galaxy what they've awakened." The delegation that awaited her in Earth's orbital conference station represented every major power in the known galaxy: the Altarian Federation, the Kepler Commonwealth, the Rigel Trade Consortium species that had dismissed humanity as primitive backwater dwellers, now sat in stunned silence as they processed the implications of what had happened in Sol system. Ambassador Kylandra of the Altarian Federation, her blue-scaled features rigid with barely controlled fear, spoke first. "Admiral Vega, The Galactic Council demands an explanation for the aggressive defensive measures employed against the Vorthic hegemony. The complete annihilation of their fleet represents an unprecedented escalation of interstellar conflict. Vega's smile was winter cold as she activated the holographic display at the center of the conference table. Images filled the air. Vorthic ships opening fire on Earth's orbital installations, planet killers charging their world-ending weapons, the systematic bombardment of human defensive positions. Ambassador, she replied, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had stared into the abyss and emerged victorious. Perhaps you should explain to me why the Galactic Council allowed a member species to violate clearly established boundaries and attempt the genocide of an entire civilization. The holographic display shifted to show intelligence reports decades of Vorthic expansion, conquered worlds, enslaved populations, the systematic extermination of species that refused to submit to the hegemony's rule. The assembled delegates shifted uncomfortably as the evidence of their complicity through inaction played out before them. Ambassador Thrennick of the Kepler Commonwealth, his crystalline form resonating with nervous harmonics, attempted to justify the Council's position. The Vorthic were contained through diplomatic channels. Their expansion was considered a necessary evil for maintaining galactic stability. Necessary evil, Vega repeated, her voice deadly quiet. Tell me, Ambassador, how many worlds has your council allowed the Vorthic to sterilize in the name of stability? How many billions died while you maintained your diplomatic balance? The silence that followed was deafening. The assembled delegates found themselves unable to meet the human admiral's gaze. Their own moral compromises laid bare by humanity's refusal to accept genocide. As the price of peace, Captain Elena Vasquez materialized at the table's edge, her quantum form stabilized by technology that the Leviathans had shared before their final sacrifice. Death had not ended her service to humanity, it had simply changed its nature. As the new commander of Soul Defense Command, she represented humanity's evolved relationship with existence itself, the Terran Federation. She announced, her voice carrying harmonics that bypassed normal hearing to speak directly to consciousness, is hereby withdrawing from all galactic treaties and trade agreements. We reject the authority of any governing body that would permit the attempted extermination of entire species for political convenience. The delegates erupted in panic chatter. The economic implications alone were staggering. Humanity's primitive trade goods had become essential to dozens of galactic economies. But more terrifying was the military reality that the Battle of Soul had revealed. Ambassador Zephatin of the Trade Consortium, his merchant's instincts overriding his fear, leaned forward desperately. Admiral, surely we can reach some accommodation. The economic disruption of complete withdrawal will be nothing compared to what happens next. Admiral Vega interrupted. The holographic display shifted again, showing new ships under construction in facilities throughout Sol System. Vessels that incorporated Leviathan technology, quantum manipulation systems, reality warping capabilities that made the Ghost Fleet seem primitive by comparison. For 40 years, she continued, humanity has prepared for this day. We built weapons, trained soldiers, developed technologies that you cannot comprehend. The Forbidden Zone wasn't established to protect us from the galaxy. It was established to protect the galaxy from us. The truth hung in the air like a death sentence. Humanity had never been the helpless primitives the galaxy believed them to be. They had been patient predators, waiting for the right moment to reveal their true nature. Captain Vasquez gestured to the viewports, where Earth hung like a blue jewel against the stars. But now the planet's surface was different, covered with the geometric patterns of massive construction projects, orbital elevators reaching towards space, cities that glowed with the light of fusion reactors. Earth is no longer requesting recognition. As a member of the galactic community, she announced, we are informing you that humanity will take its place among the stars. With or without your permission, the age of human containment is over. The implications were staggering. A species with technology that could manipulate reality itself, freed from the constraints of galactic law and diplomatic niceties. The delegates could see their own futures written in the debris, fields that still orbited Earth, the remnants of any force foolish enough to challenge humanity's expansion. But Admiral Vega wasn't finished. She activated one final holographic display star chart showing human expeditionary fleets, already en route to uninhabited systems throughout the local stellar group. We are not conquerors, she stated, her words carrying the weight of species policy. We do not enslave worlds or exterminate populations, but neither will we allow our expansion to be limited by the fears of species that stood by. While genocide was attempted against us, the message was clear: humanity was expanding, and nothing the galaxy could deploy would stop them. The Vorthic hegemony's complete annihilation had served as both warning and demonstration challengers, children, at your own peril. As the delegates filed out in stunned silence, Admiral Vega remained behind with Captain Vasquez. Through the viewports, construction ships moved between the orbital habitats that now surrounded Earth. Like a protective shell, in the distance, the first of the new Titan-class battleships was taking shape, vessels that dwarfed the old planet, killers and incorporated technology that the Leviathans had died to protect. Any regrets? Vasquez asked, her quantum consciousness touching Vega's mind with general curiosity. The old admiral considered the question as she watched the transport full of colonists depart for Kepler-4 to be the first human settlement beyond Sol system. 47,000 had died defending Earth, but their sacrifice had purchased freedom for the billions who would follow. None, she replied finally. They forced our hand, Elena. They came to our home, threatened our children, and tried to exterminate our species. The galaxy will learn to coexist with humanity, or it will learn why Earth was truly forbidden. Above them, Earth's star charts glowed with new destinations, worlds that would soon know the touch of human feet, the sound of human voices, the light of human civilization. The Forbidden Zone had become humanity's launching point, and the galaxy would never be the same. In the Memorial Hall, the quantum flame continued to burn, its light carrying the memories of those who had died to secure humanity's future. Their names would be carried to every world humanity claimed, every system they explored, every star they touched. The children of Earth were free, and the galaxy trembled at their approach. But in the deepest vaults beneath Cheyenne Mountain, where the Leviathan technology was studied and slowly understood, human scientists were already working on the next revolution. The battle for Earth had been won, but the greater war, the war for humanity's place among the stars, was just beginning. And this time, humanity would not hide behind forbidden zones. This time, they would make the entire galaxy their domain.